Over the years, I've always found your relationship dynamic truly fascinating. Divorce didn't push you apart in the usual way. You kept living under the same roof, each of you retreating to separate wings of your spacious home. Of course, having such a large house certainly helped make that possible. When people talk about the breakup of the Duke and Duchess of York, the same story often comes up: sensational headlines, scandalous tabloids, the infamous toe-sucking photos, and the feeling that chaos simply took over. But if you listen to Sarah Ferguson's own mother, you'll hear a very different version of the story. She made it clear the end of the marriage, she said, wasn't about scandal or journalists hiding in the shadows. To her, the real issue was simple and direct. Prince Andrew, she believed, lacked character. Years later, that frank assessment appeared again in Andrew Lowe's book, Lands. Without any melodrama, her words hit hard. There's no embellishment, just a quietly powerful verdict that says everything without any need for dramatics. She didn't try to soften the blow. It was raw, unequivocal, a statement, intimate in a way only a mother's truth can be. Susan Barantis' words invite us to look beyond the spectacle of this royal union and reflect on its deeper meaning. To truly understand the weight of her observation, let's go back to where it all began. In July 1986, Andrew and Sarah's marriage seemed full of hope. Their wedding took place under the vaulted ceilings of Westminster Abbey and was broadcast to 500 million viewers across the globe. As they stepped out into the dazzling daylight as the Duke and Duchess of York, they were greeted by a sea of joyful faces and the traditional crowd chanting, everyone eagerly waiting for that first public kiss. At that time, Britain was still filled with pride from Andrew's service in the Falklands War. He was seen as dynamic, confident, and a young royal bringing new energy to the monarchy. Sarah, meanwhile, won over crowds and viewers with her warmth and openness. She refused to fit the reserved, silent mold expected of princesses, and many women watching from home saw her as a kindred spirit. For a brief moment, it felt like the House of Windsor had finally found what it needed most: real warmth. But reality, steady and unyielding, began to creep in almost from the very start. Andrew's naval career, often portrayed by the media as a mark of duty and honor, kept him away for months at a time. On the surface, it seemed admirable, but in reality, it left their marriage without the one thing it needed most: being together. Very soon, the relationship became unbalanced. Sarah found herself shouldering the weight of royal obligations, constant media attention, and the challenges of parenting, mostly on her own. Susan Barantis, Sarah's mother, didn't just observe this from afar. She was closely aware of Sarah's loneliness and could see the growing distance between the couple. Later, in a candid interview with the Italian magazine Gente, Susan spoke openly about Andrew's many appealing qualities. She called him handsome, generous, and the kind of man who would gladly give his last coin to someone in need. But then she didn't hold back. She laid out the deeper truth, stating simply, Andrew, she said, completely lacked character. There was nothing subtle about her words. This wasn't just a reflection on faithfulness, it was a statement about reliability, inner strength, and the choice to be emotionally present, not just in the good times, but especially when life got rough. By the 1990s, the cracks in the marriage were impossible to ignore. Both Andrew and Sarah began having affairs outside their relationship, a turning point so serious that even the highest ranks of the royal family knew something had to give. Action was taken. Andrew was called into a tense intervention-style meeting, highlighting just how far things had unraveled. A detail from Andrew Lowe's book entitled stands out with remarkable impact. In a moment that's almost shocking in its boldness, Sarah brought one of her lovers to Andrew's 30th birthday celebration. This wasn't shared to fuel gossip. Instead, it gave us a glimpse into the chaos that had taken over their marriage, a partnership now lacking boundaries and respect. In March 1992, things reached a turning point. Andrew and Sarah officially announced their separation. The statement was brief and matter-of-fact, meant to convey a sense of calm. Sarah tried to reassure the world with her calm, practiced demeanor. She insisted that everyone was doing well and said the situation would remain a private matter between herself and the Duke. But in truth, privacy was a luxury the family simply couldn't afford. At that time, Princess Beatrice was just 8 years old, and Princess Eugenie only 6. Their parents' separation quickly became a very public spectacle, unfolding under the harsh, constant scrutiny of the press. Andrew's fall from royal standing was dramatic. It stripped him of both privileges and prestige. This wasn't just a personal upheaval, it was an unprecedented unraveling within the House of Windsor. For Sarah, the consequences were swift and harsh. Almost overnight, she went from being adored to becoming one of the monarchy's most criticized figures. The poll numbers left no doubt her popularity dropped sharply. According to Andrew Lowe, this period was marked by a wave of strategic leaks, all seemingly designed to further damage Sarah's reputation in the public eye. Her mother, Susan Barantes, saw what was happening and was convinced that Sarah was being used as a scapegoat to protect the monarchy. Still, the stories in the press were not all made up. Many stemmed from Sarah's own actions, some of which caused real concern. It wouldn't be fair to say she was completely blameless. Custody became an incredibly raw and high-stakes issue. Barantes was clear Sarah could not lose her daughters. This is where the story becomes more complicated, bringing up uncomfortable memories from the past. Years ago, Barantes herself left her young children behind when she moved to Argentina with a new partner, a detail critics were quick to point out. But for Barantes, this wasn't about hypocrisy. It was about making sure Sarah wouldn't be left behind by a system that so easily discards people who no longer fit. With the benefit of distance and time, Sarah would later share a much more polished, diplomatic version of her breakup story. The topic even came up in lighter interviews, where attention shifted away from heartbreak and toward more everyday matters like buying a Swiss chalet. She confirmed this with a sly nod to locking in a good mortgage. In a 2007 interview with Harper's Bazaar, Sarah explained that she had longed to do meaningful work, but she noted royalty discouraged its princesses from pursuing commercial ventures. In her words, splitting from Andrew was a practical decision, one that allowed her to earn her own income. This story has always stirred skepticism, not because it's misleading, but because it leaves out something important. Wanting a job on its own doesn't lead to emotional breakdowns, affairs, or require the palace to step in. Her version focuses on what happened afterward, skipping over why everything unraveled in the first place. In contrast, Susan Barantes addressed the emotional gap Sarah avoided. Barantes wasn't concerned with jobs or etiquette. Instead, she explored what it really takes to keep a marriage going when the initial excitement fades, the strength needed when life turns routine, tough, or simply dull. What makes this saga even more compelling is what happened after the divorce. Legally separated in 1996, Andrew and Sarah defied expectations by keeping a bond that was anything but ordinary. By 2008, they were living together again at Royal Lodge, though each had their own wing. Over time, their relationship evolved into what they themselves called unconventional bliss, with the pair joking they were the happiest divorced couple. Whether they were celebrating family milestones or appearing in public, their unity was unmistakable. In interviews, they shared stories filled with mutual respect and lasting friendship. Sarah kept things simple. She and her partner lived together, promising to always be part of each other's lives. Their connection was built on compromise, open communication, and compassion. Their daughters added another layer to this story. Princess Beatrice, on the podcast Lessons from Our Mothers, described Sarah as a beacon of positivity, a mother who brought light to even the darkest days. She recalled their adventures, Sarah's resilience in tough times, and her fearless approach to life, no matter the challenges. Looking back, Beatrice remembered her early years with warmth, not regret. Her memories overflowed with energy, wonder, and a deep, honest emotion. Much of Beatrice's reflections centered on her mother's influence, powerful and consistent. In contrast, her memories of Prince Andrew felt quieter. He was present, but rarely the unshakable anchor. He took part in family life, but seldom brought steadiness. This brings us back to Susan Barantes and her blunt judgment. When she said Andrew lacked character, she wasn't accusing him of being cruel or malicious. Such accusations would only emerge years later. Instead, she pointed out something missing, a hesitance to stand strong when times grew tough or situations became strained. Now, with Andrew and Sarah expected to leave Royal Lodge in 2026, Susan's words seem more relevant than ever. The landscape has changed, titles have faded, and public opinion has shifted, but the core patterns in their relationship are still clear to anyone who's followed their story. So the question remains, was Susan Barantes right in her original assessment? Did this marriage fall apart, not because of scandal, but because Andrew was unable to show true character when it mattered most? Or maybe the responsibility belongs to both of them. Sarah's highly publicized affairs and unchecked spending, Andrew's controversial behavior and apparent lack of inner resolve. Were they simply mismatched from the very beginning, destined to stir up chaos? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're interested in deeper looks at the stories behind royal headlines, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss our next deep dive.